Awesome. So great of you all to join us. Super excited to have you here. It'll be a great time for our students, for those who are joining us, as well as for those who have the opportunity to catch us a bit later. So thank you, Amgen, for joining us and giving us your time, a little bit about your stories, as well as your expertise in terms of your area of focus. So thank you for joining us. And you all will take over from here in terms of your area with a presentation, correct?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. So let me share my slides. Okay, can everybody see my slides? Okay, great. So first of all, we'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to come and share a little bit about what Amgen does and who are the people here at Amgen. First of all, I'd like to walk you through the process of what we do. And so I'll start by first telling you that Amgen makes medications, and the kind of medications we make are called biologics or biosimilars. We also do small molecules, but they basically use biotechnology to make our drugs, and we do this for medication for diseases that we tend to look at, and we pick a particular disease state, and then we start to work within that space. So the main diseases or illnesses that we tend to look at are inflammation, oncology, bone health, neuroscience, nephrology, and cardiovascular. Within that process of being able to just look at each of those diseases, there's a process of what we call the drug discovery and all the way to the drug development. And you see it here in this diagram here. If you see this flow, it's about 8 different steps there, but it's way more than that. But these are the most basic ones. And if you look at the top, you see the part is divided into 2. You have your research and discovery, and you have your process development. And our goal is to ensure that every medicine that we make is safe and effective for every patient at every time. So the first thing we do is identify a disease state, and then select that disease state or disease burden, and then design a medicine towards it, look at a molecule. And the one that makes it through, we go through that medicine selection process, which is your third icon there. And then we test the medicine. We test that in patients in different clinical trials. We first tested, of course, in animals, and then we now take it to the next level of going through human studies. And you talk about phase 1 to phase 3, and then it gets approved. Once it gets approved, then we make the medicine, and once we start making it, we provide it to the patients. But even while it's out there in the market and on the shelves in your pharmacies, your pharmaceutical stores, we tend to still monitor and check for the quality of all our medicines. And we do that by a particular number and code that we put on it, which is usually the batch or lot number. So there's a whole lot that's involved in that. But this is just a small miniature way of letting us see what it is, what the whole process is. So what jobs are there at Amgen, and what do we do there? So these are the 6 main areas that we tend to look at, research and discovery, your process development, manufacturing, sales and marketing, operations, data science, and technology. These are the 6 main areas. We still have a couple of areas, again, that are still under that, or under these, but almost every field of study can be found in a pharmaceutical or a biotech company. So don't think that because we're just doing science only that it's not there. You have your accountants, you have people who are even still part of marketing, who do a lot of marketing, a lot of people who do a lot of review of documents to just give information out, like the medical affairs team. So we have so many different areas, but these are the 6 main areas that we tend to be involved in, and that we tend to hire a lot of people. So if you're interested in any of these areas, you definitely have a place and a position in Amgen. So I'm going to start with introducing myself and and what I do at Amgen. And then I have my other colleagues, amazing people who work in different departments who do the same as well. We'll introduce ourselves, we'll tell you a little bit about what we do at Amgen, and then we'll be able to follow that with some questions thereafter. So my name is Oluwadamilolo Oguyenkin, but everybody calls me Olu. I'm a physician by training, but at Amgen, I bear the position of a global safety senior medical scientist. And my job is to monitor, investigate, and report all the side effects of drugs that we make. Even while being made, during the time while the medications are being administered to patients or what we call subjects during the clinical trial, we monitor all the adverse events, all the side effects that you tend to see, any ailments that may occur or untoward effects that may occur in the process of taking these medications. And if we identify any of those, we investigate it and to check to make sure that it's due to the medication. And if there are, then we find how do we mitigate or how do we lessen or dampen the negative effects or risk involved with any of our products. And this is across the board in every pharmaceutical or biotech company where they are making medications. You have to have somebody in my position to do that process. But once even the drug is out or the medicine is out in the market, being used in being on the shelf, CVS, pharmacies, Walgreens, whatever, we still monitor all our drugs. Now we're still monitoring that. Okay, is any side effect still occurring? Is there something that we didn't catch during the clinical trials that could actually be occurring with somebody who is using a different drug along with it, who has a different biological makeup of a different age that maybe we didn't test? So we do this continuous monitoring, continuous follow-up, what they call pharmacovigilance or drug safety. So that's just a little bit about what I do. So next, I'm going to call on Ngoni.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hello, my name is Ngoni Madungwe, and I'm a process development scientist here at Amgen, also based at the Amgen, Massachusetts location. And so for the work that I do, coming from the work that, I guess the folks in the research and discovery side, the simple way I can try and put it is that, so the research folks look for drug targets on a very wide scale using very small quantities. When they find something that is something that's a potential medicine, then they probably might maybe scale it up to about the cup size volume. And so where I fit into the process is how do we then take that medicine that has been discovered probably on a very small volume and bring it into thousands and thousands of liters, where we can then be able to supply medications for patients across the world. And so I work on the pretty much, I guess, understanding how the manufacturing processes and conditions that we would need to implement on these medicines to then get them to the large scale and clinical trial stage of the process. So usually I work on the upstream process, cell culture. So doing with cells, so taking from the cup size version, we work with probably about bucket size volumes to understand the process. And then once we understand it, we then transfer that knowledge to the large scale folks who then make it in terms of 10 or 20,000 liter volumes, which are then able to supply for the commercial market and clinical trials. And I'm from Zimbabwe, and my background is in chemical engineering and biomedical engineering. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have Larry.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Olare Waju Oludipe. I go by Lanre and I work in downstream process development. So I follow up from what Ngoni does, and my work revolves around two main things. The first is to purify the drugs that we make. And to give a very simple way of thinking about that, imagine if you saw a sneaker that was very dirty, but was very nice sneaker covered in dirt and junk, and you would take it through, maybe you would wash it, spray it and clean it. But my job involves taking that kind of thing where we see a protected drug that can be very useful, but it's covered in junk and impurities. So my job involves taking that and being able to purify it such that the patients that would take those drugs do not have any side effects or any negative reactions. That's one part of my job. The second part is to make sure that the process that we make can allow drugs to be made on a very global scale. Because like Ngodi mentioned, when we do it in R&D, we make very small sizes, but to make sure that every patient gets a part of the drug, we have to be able to expand it and make it on a global scale. So my job involves purifying and also making sure that the drug can be produced on that big a scale. So that's me.
Thank you. So next we have Marisa.
Hello, so I'm Marissa. I work in the Drug Product Technologies Department. I'm also a Process Development Senior Associate. I am also at the AMA site in Cambridge. And I basically, so what you've been hearing a lot of, we make large batch scales of this drug to help supply clinical trials and, dose to patients and all of that. So what I do is rather than working with the drug substance, which is the like 12-liter batch, I have basically a batch would be made and they would come to me in the vials that would usually be packed, the drug would be packaged in. And I design experiments that would help mimic what these larger scale manufacturing sites would be doing in order to make sure that, nothing happens to the drug itself during that larger scale manufacturing. So I basically help try and mitigate or, find the root cause of potential issues that could come during a large scale manufacturing process. And I also work on formulation-based studies. So as you heard, there's usually like a medicine, we select it, we test the medicine, and then, as time goes on, and even as Olu had mentioned, where he continues to continuously monitors, even when this medication's on the market, if things come up where there are adverse reactions or, something comes up where, we run into issues in manufacturing, I help kind of go back and look, at the smaller base, scale based, where we at the very bottom, and say, okay, this is a formulation, this is what the drug is made of. How can we help establish, better ways so that we're not running into these adverse events that may be occurring and help solve, mitigate those issues. I just recently graduated with my master's in biotechnology from Brown University, and I got my bachelor's degree in biology and neuroscience. So I am very new to Amgen and very new to the industry, but you learn a lot, and it is definitely an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. And next we have Dylan.
Hello, my name is Dylan. I'm a process development scientist in attribute sciences at Amgen. And so attribute sciences is effectively the analytical chemistry arm of Amgen. And so as we've been hearing, there are a number of steps from the early research and discovery phase to kind of a sequential series of scaling things up. And so along that process, we have to really understand, what matters for these potential drugs and what doesn't matter, right? And so back to the sneaker analogy, it's sort of understanding what makes a good sneaker, and that falls under attribute sciences. And so it's really our goal is to understand, what attributes of a molecule make it have high quality and what attributes kind of degrade the quality. We use that information to develop methods so we can better monitor the status of a molecule. And as we change the process, we're feeding that information back to our drug substance and our drug product colleagues and saying, here's what's really working well in the process, and maybe here's where we have some gaps, or here's things that we need to keep an eye on. My background before joining Amgen was in biochemistry and analytical chemistry. And so I in particular work on a mass spectrometer. It's a certain type of analytical instrument. That's sort of just what my passion is.
Thank you, Dylan. Next up, we have Evans.
Hi, everyone. My name is Evans Esperance. I also work at Amgen in the process team. I'm an engineer. So my job involves taking things that maybe Laundry or other people who spoke before me are working on in the lab at smaller scale and making sure we can produce them in manufacturing at larger scale so we can bring those medication to patients. My background is in chemical engineering. So I grew up in Haiti, got a bachelor degree here at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And after graduating, biotech was the first field I was interested in. And I've been at Amgen for a year now.
Cool. Thank you. Next up, we have Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I am also in drug substance, so I'm a process development scientist. And I think where I differ from everyone previously is I'm a chemist, and my background is in organic chemistry. And so Amgen is very biologics focused, but there is some chemistry to be done here, and that's where my focus is. So very similar to what other people have done, except just with chemistry. So we take what research and discovery has given us. So they've given us a certain small molecule, and their route is not optimized to make that particular one. Their goal is to make many analogs that look very similar to that one with a little difference here and there. And so once they've narrowed down to one specific molecule, that's where we come in. So we design a new route just to target that one molecule. So we have the new route, and that's what we come up with. And then once we have our designated route, we need to optimize it. So we want to make sure that we make the route as efficient as possible. So we want to think about the green factor. So we want to be environmentally friendly. We also want to be cost effective and not just waste a lot of materials. So once we have the route in hand, we'll optimize it, and then we'll go from small scale all the way to large scale. So we'll start in like little reactions that are about this big, and then we'll go all the way to huge reactions and what you see at the bottom, that picture there. So we'll end up there, but we'll start really, really small. And we just want to test along the way and make sure that what we've come up with works. And so that's what I do. I have a background, like I said, in organic chemistry, and I'm from North Carolina.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Tom.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. I apologize, I'm not on video right now. So I'm Thomas Stretta. I'm also in the drug substance organization like Evans and some of the other folks on the call. My focus is a little bit different. I work on software, digital tools that help with data to help Amgen manufacture its medicines for patients. So the focus is a little bit different, mostly dealing with different digital tools. My background is actually in chemical engineering as well, but I've worked in different roles at Amgen in the lab. I've worked in engineering, and most recently I worked as a data scientist in my career. Thanks.
Cool, thank you. So I guess I'll hand it over to Rylan. For you, do you want me to stop sharing this screen or?
Yeah, that'd be great. What we'll do, we'll put our slide back up, and then we'll go from there with the questions that I have for you all.
Okay.
Rose, do you mind placing our slide back up for our panelists?
Will do.
Thank you. And so for the first question, and I'll highlight a few of you all. So I'll start with Marissa Evans, and I believe it's Nagoni. Is that correct? Nagoni, did I say it correctly?
Yeah, Ngoni.
Nagoni, okay. All
Yep,
right.
you did.
Thank you. So for you three, I want to highlight this specific question. Obviously, we're a lot older now. A lot of you highlighted your education. But what advice would you give your high school self? What is something that you would tell yourself, that you could tell yourself when you were in high school right now?
Good question. I guess I can go first on that one. I think the number one advice that I would give myself is follow your passion. You know, I always found science classes for some reason as being my favorite. So I just continued on with that, you know, sticking to science. When I was in high school, I actually um, tried a few different, I did a certified nursing assistant course. And that kind of really helped me also realize, you know, that I want to be in patient care and that's what I'm passionate about. And you know, really just try, and it might sound weird, you know, saying it, but at least for me, you know, if you have a mentor or if you're looking for a mentor, you know, don't feel like I'm only in high school, though that's for college students. That's not the case at all. Definitely reach out, try and find a mentor, you know, get as much experience in all the different types of field. There's so much out there, you know, get in as much experience as you can in all these different types of areas and really find out what makes you happy and what helps with your passion. Because I think one of the big things is, you know, in high school, you feel so obligated to go right from high school to college. And it's, you don't have to, you know, you don't have to do that. It's okay to take a year off. It's okay to take time and try and, you know, really figure out what you want to do, or even go to community college. I did a year at community college, just taking different courses, you know, figuring out, okay, I like this, I don't like this, I like that, I don't like that. So I think the biggest thing is really just, you know, look for a mentor. Don't feel like you can't find one because you're just in high school, and follow your passion.
I think Marisa touched on some great points that I also wanted to talk about. So for me, it's a little bit different. Uh, I grew up in Haiti and I moved here during my last year of high school. So I think I spent a lot of time that year just thinking of what's next for me. What do I want to be? Uh, Trying to find like the perfect career path. Uh, and I think early on, right now, I would tell my younger self to just try different things and see if you like it and if it's the right choice for you. I actually started at a community college, uh, and I think that was a good move for me as well. Also, having mentors really help. Uh, I was exposed to research, different types of research, physics, history, a bunch of different things before I decided that I really liked engineering and wanted to go in that path. So to summarize, I would say the advice is to try different things. Keep an open mind. See what you like. Explore. Find mentors. Find people who are willing to listen and help. Uh, and do your best.
Awesome, Rose. I guess just to echo, I guess what has already kind of been said, my two pieces that I would add would be to always remain curious. I mean, one of the things I think is very valuable, especially like at the age of being young, like in high school, is that like you have everything at your feet, and so attending, you know, events like this, like with Enroute and all these things. Like I remember I used to go to like these random career panels to hear about jobs that, you know, frankly, I was just like, who does that? Or like, I'm not interested in that. And yet, lo and behold, like years later on, when I finally had different knowledge and perspective, it's like, oh wow, I'm glad I learned, you know, maybe because some of those paths ended up being paths that I actually wanted to pursue. And so definitely like, you know, being curious, like I guess the way I would sum it up would be like to, as best as you can, to try and learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in a way, like try new things, like you know, whether it's an opportunity. I got into research by accident. I didn't think I would like it. I tried it out and then I fell in love with it. And then I've been doing research for the last like 12 years of my life. But had you asked me at the start, I would have been like, no, I don't like research. But you know, to be curious, to try things. You know, you're still discovering a lot about who you are, and so you'd be surprised at the things that you end up enjoying, and then things that will end up taking you to where you want to go.
Awesome. So for the next question, Dylan, Morgan, and Landry, what are some myths about working in pharmaceuticals? There are so many things that students have access to, and social media is the main one. So they have 24-hour access to information. That doesn't mean that those are facts. They just have access to information. So what are some myths about working in pharmaceuticals?
That's a good question. I don't know kind of what the most pervasive myths are. I guess there's a lot of misconceptions about the pharmaceutical industry. I think kind of probably the most common thing that I hear is sort of like, you have like many faceless, terrible companies that are, just in it for money, things like that. And so I think a lot of kind of the goodwill that goes into the pharmaceutical industry is lost, and kind of, especially at the ground level, the motivations of actually having a prospect of day in, day out, putting in your hours, and someday hopefully that will help somebody, is sort of lost along the way. But I don't know, maybe it's a question for the audience, right? What are the myths, and maybe we can dispel them or see if there's any truth to them.
Yeah, I can sort of piggyback off of that. I think I also don't really know many of the myths other than that we're all out to grab a lot of money, and that some of this stuff is all a scam, which, I mean, none of that is true. I think, especially with the people on the call here, like, we're all scientists. And so I think that we're very far removed from, like, if even that were the case, even remotely, we have absolutely nothing to do with it. None of us are putting the price of a drug anywhere. None of us are, if we're not even in advertising, like we're not making the commercials that you see. We're not making the price, and we're not doing any of that sort of stuff. We're at the very base level, actually coming up with the drug and monitoring the drug and making sure it's safe for everybody to take. And we've cleaned it up as much as humanly possible and things of that sort. So I think all of, like, the talk about big pharma and everything like that has, we are not involved in those, like, I don't even say decisions because it is actually a myth. We are not involved in that. And so I think to be, at least with the roles of the people who are on this panel, an interest in science is really what you need. And I don't think that gets talked about enough.
Something else that's probably not a myth, but I think gets overlooked a lot, like when I talk to my friends, my family, is sort of the failure rate in the pharmaceutical industry and kind of the perseverance that's required. I think that probably the myth would be that it's fairly straightforward to make a new drug, right? You just pick a disease you want to cure and you want to make money off of, right? And the reality is, every step of the way, the failure rate is so high. It is a statistical anomaly almost to get something from start to finish. And when you're working on it, if you're working on a program and you learn kind of 2.5 years in that it's not going, it doesn't have quite enough promise, right? It doesn't have a robust effect. It's not helping people as much as we'd hoped it would, and it gets canceled, right? It is devastating, and it kind of takes a lot of perseverance to come back the next day and kind of say, this next one could be the one, right? And put in 100% effort day after day when, the numbers really aren't in your favor.
Yeah, and to just go off this point, I think you guys have made great points. Because I think it took me to work in the industry to really understand the cost that goes into it. For example, some drugs take like 6 years to finally produce, and all that 6 years, companies are putting in money, putting in resources into making this drug. I think those things are things that I've come to learn working there. But I think to go on a lighter note, I think I've heard like two myths based on previous career panels. One is that you have to be a scientist, you have to be in science to work at Amgen, which is not true because we have different career paths like business, we have finance, we have IT. That you don't have to be a bio or chemistry or microbiology major to work in biotech. So that's one myth. I think the second one that I've read is that we work a lot. So like we work from say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I think that is not true. I think we have pretty good work-life balance. Even if you're at Amgen, for me, I typically work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and I go home and I rest. So I would say those two things are things that are not always true. At times you may have to work maybe to 6 more hours than usual, but it's not something that is like a something that's constant. It's very varying, and most times you do have very good work-life balance. So I would say those two things are things that I think are not always true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I wasn't really picked for this question, but I liked that answer, and I just want to piggyback off of it a little bit too, where in the sense of, I think a big myth as well is, going into the biotechnology industry is you are expected to know everything and anything about it, and you have to know all of the processes, which is again not true at all. You are very well mentored. You have all of the resources to, especially at Amgen. When I started, it was a bit overwhelming because I was coming from, just college where I was in a little lab where there was one little bench, and then I'm walking into a lab where there's rows and rows and rows of benches and all these machines I've never seen before. And it can be a little bit overwhelming. And I think the myth is, you're just expected to when you're hired, you're expected to know it all. And that's not the truth at all. You have all the resources, mentorships, everybody's always willing to help, even if they're not part of your team. You could reach out to anybody. One of our big policies is, just raise your hand and anybody is happy to help and explain to you or show you some different techniques. And like I said, I've been at Amgen for 10 months and I have learned so much that I never even knew before. And I was studying biotechnology. So I think that's another myth. And I just wanted to make sure that, it's very clear, especially at Amgen, that it is not the case. And there is a lot of people that will help you along the way.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is for Tom and Olu. What did you study in college? Because many of our students are going the career pathway of going to community college first and then going to a university. So it's interesting for our students to hear the different paths that you all have taken when it comes to your education. So what did you study in college and potentially where?
I can start. I studied engineering in college, but maybe just to back up, I studied engineering because in high school I really liked math and science and enjoyed, working with those subjects. I didn't really enjoy as much writing, even though it's required. It's an important aspect of anything that you do to be able to do that. But I didn't enjoy that as much. But I actually really liked history as well. But I liked science and math more. So I studied chemical engineering in college. I went to Rensselaer, similar to Evan's RPI. And for me, it was great because I could really, there were so many people that also really liked science and math there. And that was something I didn't have exposure to in my high school. There were some people that liked it, but not as many people. And I really found, friends and peers that it had the same passion for it that I did. But I was also able to do other things and learn about other things, particularly like history I mentioned. So I was able to study the history of technology when I was at RPI, and that was something that I really enjoyed because it allowed me to sort of focus on a subject I liked, which is history, but apply it to an area that I was interested in, which was technology. So that was my path. I focused on chemical engineering because I ended up liking chemistry and biology as part of what chemical engineering offered, and I felt that area would allow me to work in a variety of different industries. At the time when I graduated, biotechnology was the one that I ended up in, but there were lots of areas I felt like I could apply that to. So that was my career path.
Okay, mine was a little simpler too. So I read, I'm a physician by training. I went to medical school, read medicine, and that was in Nigeria. Then I came here, and I continued my studies. I did a master's in public health. And then somebody introduced me to the industry. And it was more through what we call a CRO, contract research organization. And it was like a transition period. Just just kind of learn a little bit about it before you move to the next thing you want to do. And then I learned about how and the NIH was doing all these clinical trials with research. And it was just so mind-blowing because I've never been in research. I didn't know so much about clinical trials, the different slithers of clinical trials and the whole outcomes that is involved with it, the drug safety pharmacovigilance, the regulatory components. So, and that's how I got into the industry, away from the clinics. And since then, I've worked in, this is my third company that I'm working for in the industry, and it's been interesting. So that was kind of my background. So I also have a master's in public health. So I think mine is a little simple, but before, if I've answered that question, I just wanted to just touch on one more thing that my colleagues talked about earlier when they were talking about the myths. And one of the myths too, that I was one of the people who believed in too, was that, pharmaceutical companies just make a lot of money. They're sending out people to, we call them MSLs, the medical science liaisons, the people who go out and meet doctors, nurses in the hospitals and tell them about the drugs and everything. And, they would just come, they would have all this lunch, they have these souvenirs they give to you and all that stuff. And we just thought, until when I came into the industry and I found out how much time it takes to make just one molecule, one drug, and then how much money goes into it. So I wanted to share just for about a minute, if you don't mind me sharing this on the screen. Yeah. So there's another one that I was looking for. I couldn't find it. I have about 2 other slides, but this is not the most recent, but it is close to it. So this is how you see when a compound is produced, then Larry and everybody else, the Dylan, and how they get all the things and put it in. They look about between 5,000 to 10,000 of these molecules. They're looking at all the time and trying to say, this could be the drug that would cure HIV. This could be the drug that could cure hypertension. And they're trying and keep on testing them. And we keep on seeing the failure of them. And they finally get to about 250, and they test on those again. And then they find out that it's only 5 that are good to go to the clinic that we can test on human beings. The rest of those, between 5,000 and 10,000, money has been spent on them. That period of time was already 6 years, 6 to 8 years has already gone by. And the company is already spending money, like burning real money. And they now get to these 5 molecules. And between the time when they do these 5 molecules to when they get that final one, you're already getting to between 10 to 16 years of spending on just one molecule that you want to do. And by the time they produce one that's approved by the FDA, they've spent about 802. But as of 2022, the current price of one molecule of one drug to produce is $1 billion, excuse me, 1 point something billion dollars. A company will spend about 1 point something billion. We're talking about salaries and everything. Just the 8 of us here, approximately for a whole year, I would say that they've already spent almost $1 million on us. About, just 8 of us here alone. And we're coming to work every day, doing work every day. So this is what you see. But the myth that, oh, they're just making money. No, my wife worked for a particular company, and when she was working with them, they were just 6 years old. They weren't making any money. They've not made one single dollar, and they've spent millions already. So the first 16 years of making of just the idea of a drug till when you can get it approved, it's a lot of money that the company is spending. But nobody talks about that. Not a single TV station, radio station, or podcast or wherever talk about that. But they'll say how much the companies are making. But before we make any money, we've already spent a lot of money. So I just wanted to share that.
Very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that that goes into consideration when our students are thinking about that, because even for me as an adult, I never put that into consideration. So I'm sure that is very helpful for our students. For our next question, I'll go with Morgan and Marissa. As we're working and empowering our students, especially our female identifying students, to step into STEM, there's a huge need, and I'm sure there are a ton of students who would love to take on that challenge, but they often feel like they will be, a very few once they step into the arena of pursuing STEM. So what is some advice that you have for our high school as well as our college students who want to pursue a career or a life in STEM?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the one thing that I could say is go for it. Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let any those you being a minority, don't make that feel like you are any less than anybody else who works around you. Make your voice heard. Make it known that this is who you are, this is what you want to do, and this is what you're going to do. And I think it's very important, to not only not make a name for yourself, but just make it known as to who you are. Introduce yourself. Like I do it all the time. Like even if I'm walking down the hallway, if I see somebody I've never met, I'm always like, "Hi, I'm Marissa. Like this is what I do. This is where I work." And whatever opportunities that there are, even for I know like for college or even for high school, like if there's internship opportunities, apply for them and go for them, and don't you know and that is a big thing. And it's hard to kind of push that to the back of your head, especially with everything going on in today's culture and society. But I think that when it comes to wanting to be a minority female in STEM, you really have to put that thought in the back of your head, because you are a female and you are a minority, but you are just as much equal to everybody else that works around you, and do not feel as if you are any less. And so I think that that's definitely something to keep in mind as you work through the timeline of getting into the STEM field.
I think Marissa did a really great job answering that. And I just want to echo exactly what she said and just go for it. I mean, you will likely not be the only woman, most likely. So you will enter, like, you're not going to be the only person. Like there are, at least in my department, there are quite a few of us. So you will get a lot of camaraderie in that. We have a women's lunch that we have every week. And so we all get together. And so you can find your niche, and there are a lot of people that you can sort of lean on and get help from. And the other thing is, I think what's always helped me is find a mentor. It doesn't have to be a female. It can also be male, but just find a mentor. And I think that a lot of times, or at least for speaking for myself, like I lack the confidence, but I think it really helps to have someone who's mentoring you and can tell you like, no, you should do this for yourself. So I'm not always so great at speaking up for myself or saying like, this is unjust or something like that. But if you have someone in your corner that's able to show you this is wrong, you should be doing this instead, or something like that, and take their advice and just listen to it and stand up for yourself. And I think that that's always been really helpful for me. And usually most of the mentors are actually men, but I think that is also better, because they're like, that's wrong, fix it. And then you just have to be willing to fix it. So I'd say don't be scared of it, and just go for it. You will not be alone. And there's so many supportive people, no matter men, women, or anything else, that will help you along.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that too, as well as Morgan was saying, I actually think we have more directors in my department that are female than male. So if that makes it any better. And there's also at Amgen, we have a lot of they're called ERGs, where there are different groups where there's women in STEM and science, and you can join that. And there's the Women's Book Club, and we even have Amgen Black Employee Network groups that you can join. So there are groups that you can join, where there are others that you can relate to. And like and Morgan said, you can find mentors within those groups, and really just go for it, and just push the thought of I can't do this to the back of your head, and do it, and just find the confidence in yourself, and you will be it will work out a lot. It's fearful. There's always that fear, but you kind of just have to push through it, and it'll always work out in the end.
Braylon, do you mind if I just also give my 2 cents?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So apart from just ladies or girls trying to get into STEM, I think for all minorities, it's just one thing I think that I would give as a little advice, and just from the little experience, is whatever passion you have in your heart, whatever you have in your mind that you should do, I'll repeat, I'll echo what Morgan and Marissa said, go for it. There's no two people like you. You're the only one. If that idea came to you, then it's specifically for you to manifest or to show or to display that ability. Just do it. Wherever you may go. So even as a lady, wherever you go, there's something there that that organization, that group, or that job needs from you. So don't ever hesitate. Don't think twice about it. Just do it, according to what Nike said. And then I'll steal from Ngoni's statement. Just try to become comfortable with becoming uncomfortable. Just you're gonna get there to that place where sometimes you just feel uncomfortable. As Morgan was saying, that sometimes she doesn't want to say it, she's not confident, but once you do it, you start to become comfortable in it. So anything you want to do in STEM, don't even think twice about it. It was meant for you.
Excellent advice. The next questions are for everyone, so I'll open that up and preference that. Do students need to be interested in medicine to work at Amgen? I know some of our students will have that question in the back of their head. Some of you already dispelled that's not the case, but open it up to everyone. Do students need to be interested in medicine to work at Amgen?
I don't think so. I think that what's most important is to be, I think that people that work in this field are generally interested in the mission of companies, which is to, help others and help people that maybe are suffering from illness. And I think if that is something that you find motivating, the mission of companies, I think that's what's most important. And and as others have mentioned, you can approach that from a science perspective. You can approach that from a number of different academic fields that you may study. So maybe more working with sales, or could be working with financial aspects of that. But I think at the end of the day, it's if you look at the mission of companies, I think that's what you should think is important and want to support versus necessarily making medicine or specifically having a background in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned before, when I was in high school, I was a certified nursing assistant. I wasn't necessarily making medicine, or like I just wanted to help people, and I just wanted to, better, you know, um, better the society and better the world we live in today. And I just found that, science happened to just be the interest that I had, but I realized that, I didn't want to be, in front of the scenes. I kind of wanted to be more behind the scenes. But even in that sense of, do you have to be interested in science? I mean, as we had mentioned in the beginning of this, in the beginning of our presentation, there are so many other different departments. There's marketing, there's law, there's, we have IP, there's commercialization. So even if like you are a very artistic person, marketing could be for you, because we need artistic people like that. So I don't think it's necessarily you have to be like in love with science, to have to work at Amgen. You just have to, again, I think what Tom said, just look at the mission statement. And if you can relate to that, then that's all that matters.
Does anyone else want to tackle that one?
I guess I thought my colleagues would be struggling to I thought they would be really fighting over each other to answer that question, but since not, I'll just share one more thing with the with the group. I mean, it's a slide. So just to kind of buttress the points of what Marisa and Tom said. So we have different. So even within manufacturing, you have where we develop medicines. You don't have to be a physician or interested in medicine. We had engineers here, a lot of engineers in our group. But here, I'm trying to So here, you have people who do manufacturing. They read biology, chemistry, biochemistry, biostats. We have a lot of people in biostats, just as we've shown engineering too. We have scientists who are just there, people who are in quality control, quality assurance, and a lot of regulatory affairs specialists that are involved in what we're doing in the sales and marketing too as well. We have people who do medical writing, marketing, business. And so we have medical writers, marketing associates, sales reps, technical support agents, a lot of people who are in that area too. Within the business support area too as well. You have your business, you have your finance. People have to pay our paychecks, somebody has to be doing the payroll for us. So they're there. We have lawyers too that have to fight and defend everything we do. They also help us draw up different contracts and all that. Our medications, it's not the doctors and nurses and pharmacists and the engineers that go and deliver it, right? We have a supply chain group that do that. So we have business analysts, we have accountants, supply chain specialists, intellectual property attorneys that take care of all that. So of course we have our data science people who are into, almost everything we do now is basically on the system, it's connected to the computer one way or the other. We have different software. So your information system engineer, data science, Evans can talk about that. Tom can as well speak to that as well. So we have data engineer, data scientists, statisticians, software engineers, bioinformation people. Those are the different people that we have that as well could help out. So it's not just medicine that you need to know or you need to have. You can have all those people who have that information as well.
Thank you for that. And this is the last question that I have for you all. And again, this is open to the entire group. Why should students consider entering this specific field?
I can speak on that. I think, especially if you have an interest in learning something new, or, like I said, I started at Amgen 10 months ago and I still am learning new things every day. So I think if you have an interest of, wanting to help people or patients, and, you want to learn new techniques and then new, just anything, the new biotechnology that's been coming out. We have new AI systems coming out. If you're interested in that, in any of that kind of stuff, I think that this would definitely be a field that you'd be interested in, because you are constantly learning something new. You are constantly facing challenges, but you learn how to overcome those challenges. And that's also something that I think is very important, is that, it really helps you learn about yourself as well. Like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Like, I didn't think I could, but I can. And I think that that's something that speaks very deep to me, just in the sense of, Morgan had mentioned before, like sometimes she's not too confident about certain things, but in this field, there's a lot of times where you won't be confident, and then you run into issues and you figure it out, and you're like, okay, I can do this, and that applies to a lot of other different areas and a lot of different fields. But I definitely think within the STEM field, that's probably one of the major things, is that there's always something to overcome, always something to learn, always challenges, and you really learn a lot about yourself.
I would just add that there's very few, I think biotechnology, biopharmaceutical is one of the few industries that could make a significant difference in the quality of people's lives. And you can apply your skills in many different industries, but there's very few where you could potentially be saving someone's life or extending someone's life, or significantly improving the quality of someone's life. And that's what I think, given a choice, that's why I would go into biotechnology and biopharmaceutical.
Yeah, Tom, I agree. We talked earlier about kind of how much determination it takes, and kind of the failure rate and how that can be a little bit discouraging. But the flip side of that is there is so much motivation, right? The upside of getting it right and kind of overcoming these challenges and finally getting a medicine out that can help people is an incredibly rewarding experience.
I would also add that, like, in terms of pursuing like what you enjoy, like, I guess the first thing is that I feel like why particularly this industry is that like we all interact with medicine and healthcare in some form or fashion, whether it's us directly or with people that we care about. If you find yourself like, interested in some of those things, like things that spark your interest or curiosity, if they have anything to do with that, then I highly recommend pursuing it. I guess a tip from coming from, learning to be an adult is that like being an adult is not easy, like, waking up and paying bills and doing all that. And so usually you want to be doing something that you actually enjoy, so that like at least like if you're going to be doing this for 40 hours out of your week every week, like it has to be something that you really enjoy. And so if helping people, helping humankind, or even just because normally I find a lot of people in our field, maybe not a lot, some people, they work in the field particularly because everyone has a particular story that like, oh, I wanted, like this incident happened or this situation occurred and I wanted to make a difference, and or like learn how I can contribute to a solution. And so that's why I feel like science and biotech definitely go a long way in doing that. And so whatever tickles your fancy, I would say, don't worry so much even about grades. There are certain times, I guess if I was throwing one last myth that about, you have to have perfect grades to get to where you want to go. Grades do matter and grades don't matter. I don't know if you guys would believe me right now, but like I remember in my undergrad classes, I once got a D plus in my organic chemistry class. And yeah, I really thought my life was over. But now I'm like, I'm a scientist. I've been a scientist for the last 12 years. And like, I got around it. Like I'm still here and I'm still kicking. And I think I'm doing pretty okay. So, yeah.
I just want to say one thing. I think at least like when I was in high school, I didn't know, and I think that's why programs like this are great. I didn't know that being a scientist really existed. Like I knew Bill Nye existed, but that wasn't real. And so like I had never, I mean, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I'd never met a scientist. I didn't know what it was. And I knew I liked science in school. But that doesn't really like translate to anything tangible. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be a doctor because I like science and I don't know what to do with the fact that I like science other than being a doctor. And a short, real thought session on my end was like, no, you're not going to be a doctor. That stuff is really gross. And so I think one of the great things about this, and thank you for having us and for hosting this, is just to bring the awareness around that like there are so many different opportunities within biotechnology and within this field. And I don't want to say you have to have an interest in medicine to do this, because we've all discussed how that's not true. But for me personally, I did have an interest in medicine, and I did have an interest in how the body works and things of that nature. And that's just curiosity in science in general. And I think the best thing about being in biotechnology and being about this job is I can still be curious. I can still be involved in science, and I can learn new things constantly and learn every day. So I think just getting it out there that there are so many opportunities for someone interested in science that are not being a nurse or being a doctor or being some sort of like working in a hospital or something like that. So again, just thank you for hosting us.
And so I guess we're actually on the hour. So I'll just kind of wrap up, but I'll just give one perspective that I've had. And I just want to kind of echo what everybody else is saying. I think Tom said something early on that, which to me, it's kind of weird when he says that, when he's saying it now, because I'd never thought about it when I was in high school before I got into college, is looking at what's the mission of a company, so, and I'm seeing that now. I mean, I have kids who are in high school now, and they talk about things like that. So you guys should consider what's the mission of the company you would like to work for or the industry. And then is this something that goes along with my passion? And if it's my passion is helping people, healing people, curing people, making sure that they're doing well, then how do I contribute my own? So one thing is we feel very gratified and fulfilled that we're contributing towards the cure of certain diseases, and that Amgen is producing all these drugs. And the difference between a doctor and nurse and we that work in the industry, and this was what I learned from my father. He was a physician too. And we're comparing, when you work in the clinic and public health. In the clinic, you only deal with one patient at a time. You can't see more than one patient at a time. You can't see two at the same time. You can only attend to one. I think it would be crazy if you go to the clinic and the doctor is trying to talk to you and another patient at the same time, trying to listen to the two of you. So he can only do it once. But you see, what we do, the work we do, we can attend to 1,000 patients at the same time. We send out drugs to 1,000 patients. We send out to 100. We're able to send cures to 100 people. We deal with regulatory components that we're making the policy for 1,000 people of a city, of a country, or thing like that. So I think that's one of the gratifying things that we do. So if you're interested in changing lives by the hundreds, by the thousands, this is the place to be. Thank you.
Thank you all for showing up. And before we close out, I want to make sure that I am giving our primary sponsor, Google, proper recognition for making this week possible for all of us. But you all did an amazing job. Thank you for sharing your time, your expertise, as well as your story. You will get a follow-up email because we would love for you all to get involved at some level with us in terms of potentially being a mentor to some of our students who are striving to get to those next levels. And I believe you all would be a great fit to work with our student population. So with that being said, thank you all. And I hope that you all have an amazing evening. Try to stay dry, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Yeah.
us. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Sure.